So we're back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about the topic of brain fog, just because it's something that's recently been affecting me, at least for the past week and a half, as I've been sick. But I feel like it's even spanned a little bit further back than that, maybe even since the summer that I've felt I haven't had a true sense of clarity. But this sickness brain fog is a little bit different than the other type of brain fog that you feel like when you're lost in your life and you just kind of are directionless and don't really know where you're going. So, I guess to clarify, the sickness brain fog is something where it's just like, you're feeling out of it because your body just is unable to defend itself. And that just makes you have sore throats, headaches, body aches. You have trouble breathing, you have coughing attacks and fits, and you have congestion in your nose like you could probably hear in my voice right now. But I guess in a similar sense, the brain fog of if you're on like, you know, your degeneracy cycle and you're kind of just on social media all the time. You're watching websites that you shouldn't be watching all the time, and you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing or that you know are counterproductive to your health. That kind of brain fog, I guess, is similar in a sense to a real sickness because you do experience some sort of haziness. I don't know how to explain it, but I just know that when you're engaging in these self-destructive habits, you just don't feel as good as you can, especially unless if that's been your whole life and you haven't experienced life without those, degenerate habits or whatever you want to call them, with life without social media. If you've never done like a dopamine detox or anything like that, and you've always just, when you've been growing up, just playing video games and going on social media, and that's kind of your day to day, and you don't know what life's like outside of that or without social media or technology or stepping away from all the instant gratification, then you might not even know what I'm talking the feeling that I'm talking about, the experience and the sensation of having brain fog, because it's all you know, because what you know of the technology and the social media and instant gratification, that is all you know, so you don't know what it feels like to be in absence of that, if that makes any sense, just to kind of preface everything. So, that's the starting baseline, is that if you've experienced or come out of the darkness, whatever you want to call it, if you've experienced a situation or a period of time of clarity, of mental clarity, however you have achieved that through, taking a dopamine detox or abstaining or working out or exercising, something like that. You just know that it just feels so much better when you're, truly focused on your goals, truly aligned with your purpose. All of those things just make life feel 10 times better for some reason, because, and then you look back and you're like, wow, going on social media for 5 hours a day really just fogs up my brain and just makes me unclear of thinking and not really having that mental clarity and that focus and that sharpness that you get when you're really, on one in a good way, So, in terms of like brain fog, I think I've been feeling this, at least just physically, for like in the sickness type, because I've just been sick for the past week, and I even think that's been going on even further than that because I haven't really been, at least through school and all that, I feel like I've drifted away from the path of where I'm not like destined to go, but where my heart's really at, if that makes any sense. And to be fair, I don't even really know where my heart's completely at the moment, which is what's adding, I think, to some of the confusion and the lost feelings and the brain fog that I'm feeling. So I think shoring that up and clearing up my my life path could help me out with achieving more clarity, but you know, with, like I've talked about in my past couple videos, the grind of the hustle and bustle of everyday life kind of gets in the way of that a lot of times. So I don't have all these hours to just sit down and journal about what's going on in my head and my thought process and how I want to continue through life and how I want to continue navigating and controlling the direction of where I'm trying to go in life. If Because that's like personally what I believe is that we have some sort of responsibility for ourselves and our situations. I do think that we have free will. I don't really think that everything is determined in your life. Everybody talks about that, saying like, oh, everything happens for a reason. But I think there's also, excuse me, my throat's drying up. But there's also the other side of it, the classic argument of free will versus determination. Same thing with, like, your genetics versus maxing out your personality, or whatever they call it. But what's in your control about yourself versus what's determined by your genetics. So I do think that your life path, your set of options kind of given to you at the start is not free choice, because we don't get to pick where we were born. I didn't get to pick it that if I was born in a super wealthy place, or if I was born in Detroit or some shit like that. So you can't really control that. But past that, not necessarily that everything past that is in your control, but most of the decisions, or all of the decisions that you've ever made in your life have led you to the point that you are. So, there's a balance, like everything. Like I've said, moderation is one of the universal truths that I've come to. And I can't say that it's all free will, and I can't say that it's all determination, but it's a mix of both. But I strayed a little bit off topic there, and I guess going back to the experience of brain fog and why you kind of feel that. So I don't know if this video is necessarily going to be the solution video and providing answers to, how to fix your brain fog, or how to escape the haze or the mist of whatever's going on in your mind. I think I can maybe talk about that in another video or another time. But I guess I'm just kind of gonna describe the sensation and target the origins of like why it's happening. So for one, social media, I think, is to blame. I know everybody always likes to to bash on social media, me included, even though social media has brought so many great things, and it's really a good tool if used properly. However, I do think that our generation and how far it's advanced has been, it's not, the tool of social media is not really used how it was always intended, or maybe it's evolving into a way that it's being intended to use it this way, which is keeping us addicted to our screens. And not necessarily that there's like a super whole like Illuminati thing behind this, or conspiracy that the government's trying to keep us all in the metaverse or something like that. But you kind of know where I'm going with that. So I think technology has definitely evolved into something that was not expected or wasn't designed to at the beginning, at the start, because at the start it was just designed as like a tool to connect people with your friends and all that stuff. But now it's kind of transformed into a a means and a vehicle for serving and delivering instant gratification when it's used how I think the majority of the younger demographic uses it. So, in that essence, I think it creates a lot of this, like what we call brain fog of, when you're online and you're consuming more than you're really reflecting and thinking about the things that you're consuming. It gets like backlogged, I guess. Like all this information is just pouring into your head, and apparently, like, okay, this was a quote that I wanted to bring up somehow when I was thinking about the topic of this video. Somewhere I heard that your brain or your mind can only focus on 7 things at once. I don't know the validity of that. I don't know if that's true or not, or if there's any science to back that up. But that's what I just heard somewhere, and it's kind of stuck with me for the past couple months, just because I've not had time to really think about these, like go in depth about topics that I want to talk about on YouTube, or just even in my own life, just ideas that I want to contemplate and like meditate on. I just haven't had time to do that because I have 7 other things that are taking the priority of my focus, which are generally school and activities related to school. So in doing so, I don't really have the time to sit down and fully flesh out these ideas for videos, which has been one of my limiting factors of why I haven't been able to post recently. And here I am again making excuses for why I haven't uploaded. But that's kind of a big thing for me, is at least in the past, I've always wanted to give, I talked about this in my last video, I always wanted to give value, provide value, and have like a structured outline of what I want to talk about, even though it seems like a lot of these things are just kind of like off the riff, and most of them, to be honest, are just off the top of my head. I just have like a stream of consciousness or something that I just have an idea in mind of what I want to talk about, and I just keep flowing and keep going to random different points about the topic, which is why my videos end up being longer than they used to, where I used to just give straight up, here's how you do this, here's how to wake up early, here's how to do XYZ. And I've kind of just transitioned more into more free-flowing thought about the subject, because it allows me to wrap my whole mind around a subject, even though I think there's pros to cons in that, which I can maybe describe in another video, because it doesn't allow me to have a super solid structure where I can have well articulated points and well researched arguments, all of that stuff, but then again, that's not really what my channel is about. It's more of just me expressing things that are on my mind kind of as they come. So anyways, the things that are contributing to me not having a super clear focus is me being involved with schoolwork, school classes, having to search for an internship, doing job interviews, XYZ, and that has left little bandwidth in my mental capacity to focus on YouTube. However, I think it goes without saying that if you're doing all of these other things, like if you have a bunch of stuff going on with school, and then you add on an extra layer, like add another layer to the onion of social media, and it's just constant consuming. And like going back to the analogy that I was talking about before, it's just like constant information just being poured into your brain, and it's not even your thoughts. That's the thing. That's why it's contributing to the brain fog. Sorry I made you wait this long for me to get to the point. But this is kind of like how I see social media negatively contributing to your mental state and your mental clarity, because you're constantly considering all these different viewpoints and all these different ideas that generally aren't yours, because when you're on social media scrolling through the algorithm, you are the one being fed the information rather than you generally voicing your opinions out and, coming to conclusions. So that's why I think that being on social media in general and just consuming a bunch of knowledge and a bunch of information is contributing to your unclear mental state. Again, if you add other things on top of that, like video games and other things that just aren't priorities to you and not really contributing to your life, that will lead you astray from what you really want out of life. And to some people, that's okay. Like I said, some people go through their whole lives just, dealing with the idea of social media, or maybe participating in that and then just not even knowing that there's an alternative of, life offline, and not like offline completely or entirely, but, having some moderation to that. And especially since we're introduced to these things at such a young age, it's hard to kind of convert back to like what was normal. Anyways, aside from me complaining about technology, it's definitely a great thing. I can't really complain too much. We are living in some of the highest quality standards of living in human history, so all of these modern amenities and niceties, you can't really complain too much, because if we go back to like hunter-gatherer era, I don't think many of us in this generation particularly would survive, in my humble opinion, including myself, I think. Like, bro, you don't even know how to cook. How do you think you're gonna go hunt a deer? Sure, you could lift, 200 pounds, but that doesn't really translate to hunting skills. Anyways, that's kind of like what I wanted to talk about for today, is just the idea of brain fog. And maybe I guess I was bashing on social media a little bit because of how it's contributing to your mental state. But there's just a whole bunch of different factors and things that can contribute to you experiencing brain fog. But I think if you want like a quick summary of how to fix this at the end of this video, since it's already this long anyways, and you don't want to like watch another video of me making a video of like, oh, how to get rid of brain fog, or if you're going to watch that video anyways, I appreciate that. But basically, I in my humble opinion, how I've experienced the clearest thought that I have, and the like awareness that I've never experienced before, I think my recommendation would be to do a dopamine detox. So that just means, getting offline for the most part, or limiting even your screen time, because I know on your phones you can do that now, and I have that set up on my phone too, like a 30-minute timer for whatever social medias I have. And then the social media that I do have, which is Instagram, I have that, and I'm only logged into my business account, so I don't even see any of the stuff from my personal feed. But, one, dopamine detox is a great way to experience some sort of clarity and to realize that you have been living in brain fog. Two would probably be like journaling about your experience and, the thoughts that are going through your mind, because I think that when they're just going around in your head, it's hard for them to sit still, and then your mind is just constantly focusing on them, but it doesn't have time to fully flesh out the idea, and therefore it still just keeps bouncing around in your head and occupies space. Whereas if you're able to journal and, write it down and get it, this is kind of how I see it, is like translating it, or like breaking it, or grabbing it out of your head, the thought out of your head, and then putting it on the paper. That is a great way to clear up space in your mind, at least how I've experienced it and what I've felt. And then finally, abstaining, semen retention, no fap, not watching dirty websites, those are great ways as well to experience some mental clarity. So I think that's going to be the video for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Remember to stay on target.